if people who met Shabazz a long time ago, I think maybe sometimes we took him for granted. Because listening, I thought, hang on, he really was what would have, in another culture, we call a Renaissance person. The amount of different things he could do simultaneously. But I just took it for granted, and kind of I would be bitching and moaning a lot of the time. So he founds this film collective, CEDDO, which is extraordinary in itself. He makes films himself as a director and a producer. Before that, he's in an organisation that's kind of modelled on the Panthers, so they've got a bookshop, they're doing Saturday schools, they're doing community organisation, they're doing a newsletter, right? So from his 20s, it's go, 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 go. So late 90s, he phones me because he knew me because I'd lurked on the edge of the BLF, I wasn't a member. And he said, oh, I want to do a newsletter to encourage black people who are making films and to make more people aware of us making films and the range of things people are doing in the industry, behind the scenes, technical things, etc. It was going to be a newsletter, and because I was at that time a performance poet, that was my only qualification, he wrote me in, and the first issue was produced, and AnkAnum, who's just gone out, was the graphic designer for it. This one-off newsletter. One-off newsletter became Black Filmmaker magazine, developed into a glossy magazine, coming out every 2 months, blah, blah. Now, I want you to think about this. When you make a film, you need 20 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, depending on the scale of the film, right? He was making films without all that. When you make a magazine, you need 20 people, 50 people, 100 people. He didn't have that. What Menelik has was, he was a brilliant hustler. He had a lot of charisma. He spoke quite quietly, but he had a lot of charisma. And he could kind of persuade you to do things. And so, he put together a combination of designers, photographers, people who do the formatting, you name it. And he had the world's best, I don't know if it was a Rolodex or Filofax or whatever, but you're talking about a list of contacts he built up over the years. And so he could get people who one didn't know were black and were making films or TV series to write the technical articles. And I would write, some of the other articles. And the magazine grew and grew and grew and grew. And the next thing you know, he decides, well, you'll have a film festival. And like with making a film, to have a festival you need 20 people, 100 people, 200 people. That didn't faze him. Next thing you know, we have the Black Filmmaker Film Festival. The first time I think Britain had seen anything like it. He managed to get venues like in Covent Garden, and he pulls in films from around the world. And what was interesting is this, usually, before then, black filmmakers who got seen, they didn't get their stuff distributed in cinemas here. What they could hope for was festivals, to be at film festivals around the world. And so the ones who got through the festivals were more the art filmmakers, like Sembene, the great filmmaker who made the film CEDDO. Shabazz pulled in films from Africa and the diaspora, Caribbean, here, etc. Some were art films, some were commercial films, some were shorts, he even pulled in animation. I didn't even know people in my country, Trinidad, were making animated films. We got to see the first sci-fi animated film, Matkara. If you go online on YouTube, you can see bits of it. Then, if you have a film festival, of course, you have to have a big gala event. Next thing you know, we're in Park Lane. There's a big gala event. People are flown over from America, African-American actors. Eric LaSalle, I remember giving a speech saying he didn't know there were black people in Britain. He was absolutely gobsmacked. One of the Spice Girls turned up, the so-called scary one, in jeans. We won't go into that. Point being, this guy could take basically just his imagination, basically, and craft so many things. Yeah? thanks to him, I ended up going to the Cannes Film Festival. What I think should have happened is, when he made his very first film, he should have tried to find a way to get over to Cannes, like Spike Lee did. I think his career would have gone in another direction, but he would probably have had to leave many of the grassroots projects he was doing behind. But anyway, and of course, throughout that process, film magazine, film festival, etc., he's bringing people in. Some people are watching him, some people are learning, some people are networking, some people are getting opportunities. So I'm sure it's very likely that people like Steve McQueen, etc., benefited from what he was doing. I was a bit stunned to know that he died. In fact, it's still hard to sink in. I didn't see him a lot. I had a period when I didn't see him for years, then my mother died and he turned up at her funeral. I don't think he'd even met her, because he could be supportive in that way. He could also be a bit of a but that's because he was a fully rounded person, right? So it wasn't always sweetness and light and tra-la-la. And above all, it is very true, and I'm glad that it's been said throughout, his basis was revolutionary principles. And it's often easy for people when they're young to feel revolutionary and not do stuff that is in line with that in their work, but he tried to do that stuff in line with that in his work. And for that, I think we need to give him great respect. He would have had a much easier time if he hadn't been revolutionary in his work. He got to make, what, is it maybe about 10 projects? He should have had so much more, 5 times more. It's a disgrace. And I actually was a bit pissed off when I saw the tributes in the media, because I thought, I'm sure the people writing the tributes may not have been old enough to be the people blocking him, but their institutions were among the people blocking him. So when you're looking at the stuff now online about him, keep that in mind. If they had been as fulsomely admiring him as they are now, we'd have had many more films from Shabazz.
Ashe.
Yeah?
Ashe.
However, he did the impossible. It's hard for people who were not there to know how impossible it was to make an independent film if you're white, let alone if you're black. No internet, no YouTube, no Netflix, no alternative means of distribution. You had the funding problem, and if you got around that somehow, you had the distribution problem. They got you there, you could not get it distributed. Somehow he got his stuff shown, whether it's community venues, etc., etc. Massive fight he undertook to get his stuff out. Massive wins. I expected to see or talk to him, maybe have a bit of an argument later this year. It's really weird to think of him not being here, but it's really important that we build on what he did, in various ways. And I think it's entirely possible. Okay, at the very least, we should make sure he and his work have an online presence, because that's the way in the modern society that you become immortal. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.